Greater works than these shall ye do. Yes, that line has called many into devotion, and it is right that it should. But hear me well. Those greater works are not your greater accomplishments, nor the improved strength of your mind, nor the perfected cleverness of your practice. The master who spoke those words also said, and he said it as the very ground of his mission, I can of mine own self do nothing, the Father within me, he doeth the works. What if this is literal, not poetic, not inspirational, not reserved for saints long buried, but literal, practical, operative this hour? What if the very promise of greater works is fulfilled only when the personal claimant disappears and the Father's presence is all? God is one. Because God is one, there is not God in your power. There is not God in your technique. There is not God in your fervent will. As long as you believe there is power in a good thought, you are far from the kingdom. As long as you cherish the flattering demand to be the helper, the fixer, the indispensable intercessor, you are still at war with the one power, who by taking thought can add 1 cubit to his stature, who by taking thought can raise the dead or heal the broken heart. The scriptures do not ask this as a riddle. They offer it as the end of self-reliance, not by might, not by power, but by my Spirit, saith the Lord. Now I must speak plainly, and in speaking plainly lift a hidden burden from you. The first obstacle to greater works is the private insistence that they must be yours. The subtle comfort of taking credit masquerades as devotion. It whispers, work harder, pray longer, learn the formula, improve the mind. It flatters the doer. If you just get it right, God will move. Stop. Stop. That is idolatry. That makes of your technique a golden calf and of your will a substitute savior. Thou shalt have no other gods before me is not a command to frighten children. It is a key to rest. There is no second power to add to God. God is. Be very firm in your understanding of your own inadequacy, not as shame, but as liberation. Be very firm. The moment you agree, I of mine own self do nothing, the race ends. The Lord is my shepherd. I shall not want, not because I have learned more, but because the shepherd is the activity of my life. When you yield the private authorship, you do not become weak. You become empty of obstruction. And in that emptiness, grace appears. Harmony doesn't come to you by effort. Harmony comes to you by grace. Do you see the bondage? As long as you must be the cause, you must also bear the penalty when outcomes fail. As long as you must engineer the miracle, you must fear your inadequacy and resent the world that won't comply. This is not the yoke of Christ. This is the yoke of self. Come unto me, all ye that labor and are heavy laden, and I will give you rest. Rest comes where the doer rests. The Father within doeth the works. So our direction is not self-improvement, but self-surrender. Not more might, but less me. We are not decorating the ego with sacred language. We are letting it fall silent before reality. God is. This is the 2-word treatment. God is one. This is the end of private heroism. And as we proceed, you will learn how to stop telling God and begin receiving God. How to let your tongue fall out before you instruct omniscience. How to be still and know that I am God. But for now, hear the axiom and let it take root. I can of my own self do nothing. The Father within me doeth the works. In that recognition, greater works cease to be a promise out there and become a presence here. You have heard the promise, and your zeal has taken it as a challenge. Greater works than these shall ye do. And then, almost before the last syllable is spoken, the personal sense rises to answer. Then I must pray harder, gather stronger faith, perfect my method, and do more than the master. Do you see the subtle insult? The master himself said, I can of my own self do nothing. The Father within me, he doeth the works. If the one who raised the dead, opened blind eyes, stilled storms, confessed no personal power, what are you trying to improve? Who are you going to outperform, the presence that does all or the nothing that does nothing? Let us ask questions until the premise of personal causation crumbles. Who by taking thought heals the fissure of fear in a brother's heart, who by willpower alters the sap in the tree, the rhythm of the tide, the secret law by which cells knit and life renews. Which of you, by perfecting a formula, has commanded dawn or scheduled spring? Who by taking thought can add 1 cubit to his stature? Who can make 1 hair black or white? Who can keep his own heart beating when he sleeps? If you cannot govern the simple drum in your chest when you are unconscious, will you now persuade the infinite with an improved syllable? There is a formula abroad in the land, pious, polished, and cruel. If I pray right, believe right, think right, then God must. Must. Who is giving orders in the temple of the holy? That is not prayer. That is bargaining. That is the human sense attempting to hire omnipotence with the wages of technique. It is still the private insistence that you be the cause and God the effect. Hear the warning and let it cut clean. As long as you believe there is power in your thought, good thought or bad thought, you are far from the kingdom. Thought is not power. God is power. Therefore, God is the only power. God is one, not by might, nor by power, but by my spirit, saith the Lord. If harmony appears, it appears by grace. It is never the consequence of your mental muscle. Peter stood before the astonished crowd and said, Why look ye so earnestly on us, as though by our own power or holiness we had made this man to walk? Do you hear the pattern? The holy men of God consistently deflect credit because they know the secret source. John said, He must increase, but I must decrease. The greater is not an upgrade of human power. The greater is the disappearance of it. The greater is not a louder shout of faith. It is the quieter transparency through which God's already present activity is revealed. As long as you approach prayer as leverage, more words, stronger feeling, better visualization, you remain a negotiator at the gate, not a child at home. You remain outside, pleading for a kingdom you carry. The kingdom of God is within you, within not as personal equipment, but as presence, not as stored up belief, but as the eye that is before thought. The letter of truth may guide you to the door, but only spirit opens it. And spirit opens as the personal claimant bows. Be very firm in your understanding of your own inadequacy, not to despair, but to clear the channel. Then you can say without anxiety, let the Father be the actor. Let me be the witness. Do you want greater works? Stop outfitting the doer. Disrobe the doer. Let the private achiever sit down in silence. Let your tongue fall out before you instruct omniscience. Stop. Be still and know that I am God. Not that I will be if you perform, but I am. God is. When this becomes more than a sentence, when it flowers as realized presence, the works appear as evidence of what is, not trophies of what you did. Then there is no strain, no scoreboard, no rivalry with the master, only the Father's uninterrupted action made visible because the obstacle of me has faded. And you will find yourself saying, with relief rather than pride, it was not I, it was the grace of God with me. Now we must plant our feet on the rock. Hear, O Israel, the Lord our God, the Lord is one. If God is one, there are not two powers. God in the condition, God in the mind, God in your history. There are not two laws contending, two wills negotiating, two currents pulling at your soul. God is power, therefore there is only one power. As long as you carry even a thread of belief that there is power in disease, power in lack, power in fear, or power in good thoughts to oppose them, your soul will be tugged back and forth in ceaseless inward warfare. But not by might, nor by power, but by my Spirit, saith the Lord. The moment you concede one power, the fight loses its opponent. Do you see the mechanism of strain? If your effort is power, then your lapse is danger. If your mental brightness is the cause of harmony, then your fatigue is the cause of disaster. Your life becomes a management of mental states, like a juggler with too many torches, always fearing the one that will fall. Who can live in peace under that tyranny? Who by taking thought can keep the nerves from fraying, the breath from quickening, the night from waking you with lists to manage? You are not asked to improve the juggler. You are asked to put the torches down. God is one. Let the mantra become medicine to your agitated system. God is. God is one. God is. Do not try to understand that with the mind. Let the words wash the mind. God is. God is one. God is. As you rest with that, not as repetition to coerce a result, but as a simple witnessing of what is the inner compulsion to fight begins to thin, you will feel it in the body. Shoulders setting down, breath lengthening, the drum of urgency quieting. Be still and know that I am God, not that I will contest your problem. I am the only presence, the only law, the only life appearing as all that is. You can't see it, hear it, taste it, touch it, smell it, or think it. You can only yield to it and discover that nothing remains to oppose it. Do not mistake this for passivity. Passivity is the lethargy of a self waiting to be motivated. This is the end of personal authorship and the beginning of receptivity. In personal authorship, you draft strategies, argue with conditions, and congratulate or condemn yourself, depending on outcomes. In receptivity, you acknowledge, I can of my own self do nothing, and you stand as a witness to the Father's activity. Then action comes quiet, direct, unforced. Words come fitting, timely, not rehearsed. Steps are taken not because you made a plan, but because you were moved by a presence that knows the way in the wilderness and rivers in the desert. Where the Spirit of the Lord is, there is liberty. Liberty from the burden of being your own savior. When you consent to one power, you stop outfitting an inner army. You stop drafting affirmations as weapons, stockpiling concepts as shields, and patrolling your thought life as if an invader could seize the throne. Thou shalt have no other gods before me becomes a comfort instead of a terror, because it relieves you of policing 1,000 lesser powers. There is no second power requiring your vigilance. There is no rival on the field. God is. God is one. God is. Let this be our simple practice now and again and again. When the mind starts its tussle, do not tack on more argument. Stop. Stop. Turn within. Let the tongue fall silent and receive. God is. God is one. God is. Remain there long enough to feel the shift from thinking to knowing, from grasping to being held. And in that wordless interval, the pressure to fight reality with your mind dissolves, not because you solved the problem, but because you woke to the truth that there never were two powers. The Father within doeth the works. We must now draw a clear line where minds like to blur it. There are two parts to this way of life, the letter of truth and the spirit or consciousness of truth. The letter is holy, but it is preparatory. The spirit alone is power. The apostle said, the letter killeth, but the spirit giveth life. Memorizing God is love. Be still and know, I can of my own self do nothing. Does not heal. Quoting, affirming, reciting are signposts on the road. They are not the country itself. Truth is not powerful as a statement. Truth is powerful as realized consciousness. Healing, supply, harmony appear when consciousness is so aware of God's isness that the mind ceases to traffic in words and begins to live the presence. God is one. Let me show you the trap, because it is subtle and flattering. The human sense, hearing the beauty of Scripture, rushes to collect more of it. Verses are gathered like charms. Teachings are stacked like lumber for a personal tower. The doer remains on the throne, now armed with sacred sentences to strengthen itself. And then prayer becomes a performance. If I can string together the right truths in the right order with the right feeling, God must act. Must stop. Thou shalt not take the name of the Lord thy God in vain is not a threat from the sky. It is a warning against using holy words as tools to move a God you have secretly made into a second power. As long as you believe there is power in repeating a good thought, you are far from the kingdom. Thought is not power. God is power. Therefore, God is the only power. God is one. What then is the purpose of teaching? Not to furnish the mind with more sentences, but to lift you above sentences into silence, where spirit announces itself. The letter is an elevator. Ride it, and when the doors open, step out. Be still, and know that I am God. Let your tongue fall out before you instruct omniscience. Hold those teeth together until the inner word, not yours, moves. My thoughts are not your thoughts. When the wind has dropped, you do not add fans. You wait for breath. So in prayer, you do not add opinions. You wait for presence. You can't see it, hear it, taste it, touch it, smell it, or think it. You can only yield, and in yielding, discover that what you were trying to say is already being lived as you. Consider how we live by symbols when the reality is at hand. A map is useful, but no one eats a map. A recipe can guide, but it will not feed a hungry child. The Lord is my shepherd is a sentence. The shepherd is a presence. To recite the sentence without entering the presence is to stand at the gate of the pasture reciting grass while remaining unfed. Acquaint now thyself with him and be at peace. Acquaintance is not data. It is shared life. It is the invisible recognition that loosens the body, quiets the heart, and needs no argument to prove it is so. God is. When this shift occurs from saying what God is to resting in that God is, the scene changes without your pushing. The pressure to produce results yields to a trust so interior that even words like trust and interior fall away. Not by might, nor by power, but by my spirit, saith the Lord. And then the promise ceases to be a goal and becomes a fact. The Father within me, he doeth the works. This is the revelation ladder. The letter serves until it dissolves in realization. And in that realized consciousness, greater works appear not as your achievement, but as God's isness made evident because you stopped trying to make it so. God is one. God is, that is all. Now we come to prayer itself. For if the letter serves until it dissolves, prayer must be the space where it dissolves. I tell you plainly, most praying is instructing God, persuading God, or trying to hire God to fix the scene. Who are you instructing? Omniscience? Who are you persuading? Love? Who are you hiring? The one who already fills heaven and earth? As long as you think prayer is leverage, you will grind your jaw and rehearse your lines and monitor your feelings to see if they are strong enough to move the Almighty. Don't go on with vain repetitions. Stop. When ye pray, use not vain repetitions. Be still. A man came to me with a notebook, pages of carefully worded petitions. He had dates, times, measurable goals for God to meet. He believed he was being diligent. He was being afraid. He had made of prayer a project plan and of God a contractor. I took the notebook, closed it, and placed it under his chair. Now I said, let your tongue fall out before you speak to God. Hold those teeth together until the wind in you dies down. We sat 30 seconds, a minute. Then what he thought was prayer ended, and what his prayer began. Silence, not emptiness, the softly felt isness. When he stood, the situation had not yet changed, but something greater than change had entered. Rest. The weight moved. My grace is sufficient for thee. Grace first, before circumstance. True prayer puts you on the receiving end of God, not on the sending end of thoughts, feelings, or words. Receiving, quiet, wordless. Thy Father which seeth in secret shall reward thee openly. The secret is not a place. It is a mode of being. Seal the lips within. Retire from managing outcomes and turn as a child to presence. No performance, no argument. Let the breath come and go without your managing it. Let consciousness shine without your trying to make it bright. Be still and know that I am God. Not that I will become God when you stir yourself up, but that I am. God is. God is one. What are we receiving? Not first a new arrangement of the outer scene, but grace and impartation of harmony, not manufactured by your mind, not engineered by will. You can't see it, hear it, taste it, touch it, smell it, or think it. You can only discover that as you yield. It is there already. Harmony comes by grace. The fear loosens. The compulsion to fix ebbs. And from that unclenched center, the Father's activity becomes evident as right words at the right time. The unplanned kindness, the door that was not on your map, not by might, nor by power, but by my Spirit, saith the Lord. Do not confuse this with passivity. Passivity waits for a mood. Receptivity witnesses a presence. In passivity, you hover in your thoughts and call it prayer. In receptivity, you stand aside and say within yourself, Father, take the field. I can of my own self do nothing. The Father within me doeth the works. Then remain very still. Don't grab the reins back. Don't add a flourish of holy words to prove you were praying. Stop. Consent to be nothing as a cause and everything as a transparency. The Lord is my shepherd. I shall not want. Why? Because the shepherd is functioning, not because the sheep have memorized better routes. Make your practice simple. Several times a day, and whenever the old prayer reflex starts instructing heaven, put it all down. Close the door, if not of a room, then of the lips. Let the tongue rest. Let the thoughts file past without salute. Whisper, if you must whisper, only this: God is one, and wait until the inner current is felt. Wait until you can say, without effort, it is enough. Then go on with your day, not armed with techniques, but accompanied by presence. The scene will reveal what the grace has already arranged, and you will learn with a relief deeper than any result could give that true prayer is not persuasion, it is the quiet opening in which grace appears. Be very firm in your inadequacy. Do not wince at that line. Do not hear insult where there is only invitation. Inadequacy, as I speak, it is not shame and not self-hatred. It is the clean recognition that the personal sense, the doer, the plotter, the performer, is not the source of spiritual action. I can of my own self do nothing. The Father within me, he doeth the works. If that is the Master's confession, what could we add to it without losing the way? God is one. Therefore, there is not God and your adequacy. There is not God and your holy stamina. There is God. God is. Now hear the relief that walks in when you accept this honestly. If you cannot do the works, you also cannot fail at doing them. If you are not the cause, you cannot be the culprit. The scoreboard drops. The anxiety about getting it right goes out with the old air. Come unto me, all ye that labor and are heavy laden, and I will give you rest. Rest comes when the performer sits down. The yoke is easy when the ox of self stops pulling a cart. It was never built to move. Your part is not production. Your part is transparency. Be very firm here, because the mind will try to bargain. Perhaps I am 60% inadequate and 40% gifted. No, that leaves you with a bill to pay and a God who must make up the difference. Stop. There is one power. There is one doer. Not by might nor by power, but by my Spirit, saith the Lord. Consider two confessions. The first says, I am strong enough. On days of strength, it struts. On days of weakness, it trembles. It must protect its reputation with effort. It is forever testing itself, forever comparing, forever fearing collapse. The second says, I can of my own self do nothing. It sounds like defeat to the world, but it is the beginning of power because it ends competition with God. It rests without torpor. It acts without strain because it knows its movement is borrowed from life itself. Paul learned this and gave us the key. My grace is sufficient for thee. My strength is made perfect in weakness. When the boast of personal power subsides, strength shows itself not as a mood you must maintain, but as an uncaused sufficiency that doesn't flicker when you are tired, doesn't swell when you are praised, doesn't recede when you are blamed. Where the Spirit of the Lord is, there is liberty. Let inadequacy become your doorway into that liberty. Do not patch the old identity with spiritual language. Let it go. The impulse to be necessary, to be the one who makes it work, that is the weight. Put it down. You will not become irresponsible. You will become responsive. The hand will still write the check, make the call, cook the meal, but it will do so as a transparency through which the Father acts. Actions will be simple, timely, exact, without the self-admiring commentary that exhausts you. Words will come, and they will carry grace, because they will not carry your anxiety. Open thy mouth wide, and I will fill it. But first, let it be empty of self-made syllables. I ask you to practice a new firmness, not the firmness of will, but the firmness of surrender. Be very firm in saying within yourself, I am inadequate to cause harmony. God is the cause. The Father within doeth the works. Be so firm that when the old bravado rises, I can push this through. You smile and step aside. And when the old despair rises, I have failed again, you smile and step aside. Do you see? The same doorway opens to both pride and shame. The same clearing receives them and leaves them powerless. God is. God is one. That is all. And as the personal doer is quietly dethroned, identity clarifies. Not the little I trying to become holy, but the I that is before thought the presence the Master called Father. It is not I, but the Father that dwelleth in me. When that is seen, greater works cease to be your project and become God's self-revelation, appearing where you used to labor, flowering where you used to force, shining where you used to take credit or blame. Be very firm in your inadequacy. You will find it is not a pit but a gate. Walk through and discover that grace has been doing the walking all along. Now we come to the heart, and I ask you to take it not as poetry, but as law. It is the Father that dwelleth in me. He doeth the works. This is not metaphor. This is not a motivational slogan to improve the self you just laid down. This is the present functioning of God as the very life of you. In him we live and move and have our being. Not we live and move and then ask God to help it along. No, God is one. Because God is one, the cause and the activity are God, and what you call you is a transparency through which that one activity shows itself. I can of my own self do nothing. The Father within doeth the works. What then is this Father within, and how shall we live it? Not by thinking up a father and not by feeling up a mood. You can't see it, hear it, taste it, touch it, smell it, or think it. And yet it is more actual than the hand at the end of your arm. It is the presence before which thought bows, the life that breathes you while you sleep, the wisdom that arranges the unarrangeable when your plans fray. Picture a branch bustling to bear fruit by effort. Observe, the sap bears the fruit by nature. So with you, the works appear by the nature of God functioning as you when the private claimant no longer sits on the root. The shift is exquisitely simple. When a need presents itself within your body, your home, your brother's heart, notice the reflex to make something happen. Stop, turn within and acknowledge. Father, take the field. I can of my own self do nothing. The Father within me doeth the works. Then be still. Hold those teeth together until the inner wind quiets. Don't compose a better petition. Don't brace the mind like a wrestler. Consent to witness. Stand at the window of your own being and watch for what the Spirit is doing now. Thy Father which seeth in secret shall reward thee openly. The secret is this witnessing, not the secrecy of words. How shall you know right prayer has begun? Urgency thins. The fever to fix subsides. The shoulders set down, the breath lengthens, and there is a quiet certainty that needs no argument to support it. Not euphoria, not a spiritual high, a gentle weight of presence gravitas without strain. You find that you do not need to repeat yourself to feel safe. You are not bargaining. You are beholding. Be still and know that I am God. The knowing is not a thought you hold. It is a presence that holds you. My grace is sufficient for thee. That sufficiency is felt before any outer sign. And because it is felt, the outer sign is no longer your master. From that center, action comes unforced. A word rises and is spoken without rehearsal. A step appears and is taken without bravado. The phone call you dreaded is made, and when you hang up, you realize you were carried. The wise silence you feared would be judged as indifference becomes the very balm that heals. Later, you may look back and ask, "What did I do?" And the honest answer will be, "I stood aside." Do you see? The works appear because the obstacle of me as cause is gone. The Father within doeth the works. Remain watchful, for the mind will try to snatch the reins. When results glimmer, it will say, "You did well, do it again." Add a little more emphasis. No, stop, stop. Return to the stance of witness. God is one. That is all. Let this be your inner refrain, not as a device to secure outcomes, but as a recognition that ends the need for devices. In this recognition, healing, guidance, greater works are not transmitted by you. They are revealed as the one revealing itself, where a private actor once performed. So take this as your living practice. Whenever a demand appears, surrender the impulse to cause and take your place as witness. Be still until the quiet certainty rises. Move only as moved. Speak only as given. And let your heart learn to love, the simplest confession any saint ever made, the one that frees you from strain and binds you to reality. I can of my own self do nothing. The Father within me doeth the works. God is one. That is all. Now let us remove the last scrap of distance that keeps you tired. As long as you hold a practitioner here, a patient there, and God somewhere else, you have invented a world of travel, of messages sent and received, of delay and doubt. You have staged a transaction and called it prayer. Who are you going to send God to? And from where would you send him? Whither shall I flee from thy presence? There is no such place. In him we live and move and have our being. Not in parts, not in ranks, not in parcels to be shipped on the wings of thought. One God, one activity. Hear it as simply as the Shema. The Lord our God, the Lord is one. If God is one, then what you called your brother, and what you called the situation are not three powers or three lives in negotiation. They are the one, life seen through a lens that still believes in separation. I and my Father are one. Do not make that the private boast of a single prophet. Make it the ground under your feet. Not I and my Father separate from you are one. No. If the Father is one and indivisible, then there cannot be a Father in you that is not the Father in your brother, or a presence in the room that is absent in the hospital, or a life in the saint that is not the life in the sinner. There is neither Jew nor Greek, bond nor free, for ye are all one. God is one. Do you see what this ends? The model of sending? You do not send peace down a wire of thought to a person down the road. You do not extend hands across a chasm and hope the blessing reaches. There is no chasm. The blessing is the presence that already is the substance of both ends of your imagined line. When separation fades, greater works do not increase by distance covered. They appear because nothing is in the way of their recognition. Grace is not a courier. Grace is the is of God felt as the one atmosphere, where two or three are gathered in my name, not in a building, not on a timeline, in my nature, in the realization of oneness. There am I in the midst of them. The midst is not mileage. It is realization. Let me be very clear. Saying we are all one will not heal. That is the letter trying to do the work of spirit. Oneness cannot be used. It can only be realized. You can't see it, hear it, taste it, touch it, smell it, or think it into place. You must enter it by surrender, by that same inner stillness where the doer is released and the witness stands. Stop. Stop. When the call for help comes, do not imagine a you here radiating light to a them there. Be still and know God is. God is one. Stand in the atmosphere of that isness until the urge to reach outward vanishes, until the sense of a second life fades, until you can feel with no argument that the life that calls is the life that answers, the life that seems to need is the life that is unbroken. Then what you call help appears sometimes as a changed report, sometimes as a changed heart, sometimes as a quiet that cannot be measured but ends the terror. Do not claim credit, claim oneness. Peter said, "Why look ye so earnestly on us, as though by our own power or holiness we had made this man to walk? Not us, not them, the Father within the one." Do you hear? The Father within the one doeth the works. That is why no transmission is needed and no delay is possible in God. The recognition is the revealing. Practice this whenever situations loom like distant giants, politics, hospitals, houses divided. Refuse the triad. Refuse the map of here, there, God. Retire within. Hold those teeth together until the wind drops. Whisper only if you must. God is. God is one. Let the atmosphere thicken with presence until the words me, them, and it lose their edges, and there is only the one doing what the one does, being itself as all. Then rise and move as you are moved. Speak as you are given, and watch how the field clears when the imaginary lines are erased. Healing is not transmitted. It is revealed through realized oneness. The Father within doeth the works because there is no outside of the within. God is. God is one. That is all. Now here is a snare, so soft you may bless it while it binds you. The temptation to turn even surrender into a method, the personal sense, not wanting to die, will consent to any number of holy steps. If only it can keep its hand on the lever, it will say, yes, I will yield, and then produce a schedule for yielding 5 affirmations before breakfast, 7 after lunch. The exact phrasing, the proper tone, the approved sequence. It will keep a tally of minutes in silence. It will polish a phrase until it shines. It will search for the perfect wording, for surely the universe must answer the right arrangement of syllables. Do you see? The private doer has survived the sermon. It has merely traded one set of tools for another. Thou shalt have no other gods before me. When a technique becomes your dependency, you have placed it before God. God is one. Hear the reversal that sets you free. Affirming truth can be almost as useless as thinking it, when you use it to overcome fear rather than yield to God. As long as you believe there is power in a good thought, you are far from the kingdom. Thought is not power. God is power. Therefore, there is only one power, who by taking thought can add a cubit to his stature, make one hair white or black, turn a storm by the bravest sentence. You arm yourself with words to fight dread, and the very fight feeds the dread. You labor to feel confidence, and the labor is anxiety in a religious coat. Stop. Stop. When ye pray, use not vain repetitions. The name of the Lord is not a spell to manage conditions. It is a presence before which conditions lose authority. Thou shalt not take the name of the Lord thy God in vain, in the vanity of using holiness to prop the little self that trembles. Where, then, is the safe ground? Do away with all formulas, affirmations, prayers that are not of a completely spontaneous nature arising from inner assurance. I say it again, because the mind will try to bargain. Do away with them, not because sentences are evil, but because using sentences as causes is idolatry with a halo. A graven image is any form you trust to do what only spirit does. To depend on the impeccable prayer outline is to melt your gold into a calf and call it God. And then you dance round it and complain that heaven does not answer. The letter killeth, but the spirit giveth life. Let the letter go when the spirit speaks, and let the letter serve only until it dissolves in the spirit. A woman came to me with a pouch of beads, each bead a step. Breathe 7 counts. Declare supply 3 ways. Visualize light, then seal it with amen. She was faithful and frightened. Her fingers were raw with diligence. I took the beads into my hand, not to shame her, but to spare her. Beloved, I said, let your tongue fall out before you tell God how light should travel. Hold those teeth together until the wind drops. We sat. No step, no sequence. 30 seconds, a minute. The breath became quiet of its own accord. No visualization, and yet the room thickened with presence. When she stood, her problem had not been solved by a formula. Her problem had been redefined by grace, so small under that weight of isness that she laughed without reason. My grace is sufficient for thee. Sufficient first, sufficient before, sufficient without props. Spontaneity is not cleverness. It is what remains when dependence on form has ended. It is the natural speech of realized assurance. Open thy mouth wide, and I will fill it. Take no thought what ye shall say, for it shall be given you in that same hour. Given, do you hear? Not manufactured by discipline, not wrung from a sequence. Given in the instant of need, as presence to presence, through a transparency now free of its props. Sometimes a verse rises of its own life and carries you. Sometimes a single word, sometimes only silence. The mark is ease, not effort, authority without strain. This is the bridge to your freedom. If technique cannot do it, and it cannot, then only grace can. And if only grace can, there is one sane move left: surrender. Not the stage surrender of the proud mind performing its let go in 10 rehearsed lines. The surrender that happens when you stop arranging God and begin receiving God. When the props fall, nothing collapses. You discover the floor you were meant to stand on. The Father within doeth the works. Let the idols go. Let the formulas fall to the ground. Be still and know God is. God is one. That is all. Here is the pivot for many of you. The hour when the mind, having rehearsed every holy sentence it knows, still asks for a guarantee, a sign, a plan. Give me assurance before I let go. Show me in advance that this will turn, and I will surrender. Who are you bargaining with? The one who already is all? The heart wants contracts. God offers presence. The personal sense wants to keep a hand on the wheel. The invitation is to take both hands off and rest in that which cannot fall. Be still and know that I am God. Not be still and negotiate. Not be still and forecast. Be still. No. God is, let it come to a head. Don't evade the crisis with a fresh technique. Face it. The mind says, if I stop trying, everything will fall. Ask it, who by taking thought has held a universe together? Who, by taking thought, has added a cubit to his stature? If the master confesses, I can of mine own self do nothing, what are you clutching? You are not dropping reality, you are dropping a claim against reality. You are not abandoning responsibility, you are abandoning the impostor that never produced harmony. Stop. Stop. Now the decisive turning within yourself, without flourish, without any audience but God. Say, Father, I turn this over. Reveal thyself. Let me feel thy presence. And stop. Do not decorate it. Do not add promises, penances, or performance clauses. Hold those teeth together until the inner wind dies down. Let the tongue rest in a sanctuary without words. If a whisper needs to remain, let it be the simplest. God is. God is one. God is. Say it not as a battering ram against circumstances, but as the bare recognition of what is, before and beyond any scene. God is. The mind will try again, but what of the result? What of the body, the bill, the child? Do not answer with plans, answer with presence. God is. God is one. Return to it as often as a wave returns to shore, not to make something happen, but to consent to what already is. Cast thy burden upon the Lord, and he shall sustain thee. Casting is not angling. You do not reel it back in to check the line. Throw it and leave it. Into thy hands I commit my spirit. That is the prayer of surrender, not of collapse, but of consummation. What changes first? You, not the report, not the weather of events, the climate of your soul. The hot wind of urgency cools. The shoulders settle. The breath finds its own cadence. The doer dissolves like mist. The witness remains. A weight, but not of strained gravitas without fear. My peace I give unto you. Not as the world giveth, give I unto you. Not as a mood you must defend, but as a presence that defends nothing and needs no defense. Where the Spirit of the Lord is, there is liberty. Liberty from compulsion. Liberty from pushing. Liberty from the proud sorrow of being the one who must make it work. Do not look around the room for proof to confirm your surrender. That is the old employer checking whether the worker performed. You have dismissed that worker. Leave him outside. Wait, quiet, present. If words rise, let them be given, not made. If silence enfolds, let it rain. The Lord is my shepherd. I shall not want. Why? Because the shepherd shepherds, not because the sheep have secured an improved technique. Not by might, not by power, by my spirit, saith the Lord. And then, without embroidery, you will notice that action, if it comes, is simple. A call, not dramatic, but exact. A sentence, short and kind, that lands where paragraphs used to miss. Or no action at all for a time, and in that not doing 100 inner knots untie. Later someone may ask, what did you do? And you will answer truthfully, I stopped trying to be the doer. The breakthrough, you will see, was not an intensified effort. It was the surrender of the one who was trying. God is one. That is all. Let us make the surrender practical. Not tomorrow, not when you feel ready now. We will take it as an exercise, but do not make an idol of the exercise. Let it be a doorway you use until the door disappears and you find yourself standing in the room of presence. Acquaint now thyself with him and be at peace. Peace is not the result of your performing these steps correctly. Peace is the sign that the doer has been released and grace has taken the field. First, identify the doer. Face one place where you are pushing health, money, the child, the marriage, the calling, the aging parent. Name it plainly. Bring it right into your lap and admit, I am trying to do God's work. Not as a scolding, just truth-telling. Who has been rehearsing speeches in the night? Who has been drafting scenarios by day? That one is the doer. Do not defend it. Do not excuse it. Just see it. Ask quietly, who by taking thought can add a cubit to his stature? If the master cannot, will your pushing make a universe turn a better way? Recognize the pressure and call it what it is, your self-appointed agency which has never healed a sparrow's wing and never will. Second, declare inadequacy without drama. Say within, I can of my own self do nothing. Do not rush. Let the words fall through you until their honesty is felt. Not pious, not gloomy, honest. Be very firm in your inadequacy. It is a sanctuary, not a sentence. In that confession, you end the argument with God. You lay down the arms of personal causation. It is the Father that dwelleth in me. He doeth the works. Let the relief begin to drip into the soil. No one is asking you to fix the world. No one is asking you to fix this moment. Consenting to your inadequacy is the end of defiance and the beginning of grace. Third, enter bodily stillness. Stop. Stop. Let the tongue rest in its cradle. Hold those teeth together until the inner wind quiets. Let the hands unclench. Let your eyes soften. Suspend the internal speeches and the holy paragraphs. When ye pray, use not vain repetitions. Do not manage your breathing. Let your breath manage you. Let everything local and noisy sit on the porch while you move into the inner room. Thy Father which seeth in secret shall reward thee openly. The secret is stillness, not a technique and absence of self-arranging. Fourth, let the two-word treatment arise, not as a chant but as atmosphere. God is. God is one. Whisper it if you must, but better still, let it hum in the marrow without syllables. God is. Not as a lever, not to get results, as recognition, as the plainest fact, beyond sight, beyond hearing, beyond touch. God is one. Therefore, there is no second power to bargain with or fear. Let that isnness become the room you sit in. Let it thicken around you. If thoughts return, do not quarrel. Return to the floor. God is. God is one. Fifth, watch for the shift. How will you know? Urgency loosens its grip. The tempo in your chest slows. The need to plan diminishes without effort. A quiet arises that asks for no proof and argues with nothing. Do not leap from that stillness to strategy. Remain. Give it a minute more than your habit would give. Be still and know that I am God. Let knowing replace thinking. From there, if action is needed, it will come unforced, simple, exact, without the self-congratulation that tires you. A sentence to speak, a call to make, a silence to keep, or nothing for now, and in that nothing, 100 knots untie themselves. Take no thought what ye shall say, for it shall be given you in that same hour. Given, not manufactured. If nothing is given, do nothing. That is obedience, not neglect. Practice this just as I have given it, briefly, often. When the mind wants to add flourishes, decline. When it wants to time the grace, decline. Slip into the inner room for 30 seconds between tasks, for 2 minutes before the meeting, for 5 before bed. Do not check the horizon for signs. The sign you seek is the peace that passes understanding. Understanding will never birth it. The Father within doeth the works. Your part is consent, transparency, witness. Release the doer and stand aside. God is one. That is all. Daily, then. Not as a campaign, not as heroic sessions that wear you out, but as a rhythm that becomes your breath. Pray without ceasing is not talking without ceasing. It is recognizing without ceasing. Make it simple. Before your feet touch the floor in the morning, acknowledge not to inform God, but to awaken yourself. God is. God is one. Not a device to shape the day, but the day's actual light. As you wash, as you dress, as you read the news, as you enter the office or the kitchen, return briefly, often to that isness. 30 seconds, a minute, the length of a hallway. Be still and know you are not trying to get strong. You are laying down the notion that strength is needed to compel life. The Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. Why? Because the shepherd shepherds. By noon, you will notice the difference. You are less hurried inside, even if the hours are full. You are not policing the mind. You are living from a center that requires less policing. The two-word treatment hums like a soft motor. God is one. If you forget, you have not failed. Stop, return. If you remember, do not preen, return. The practice is not the performance of saints. It is the sanity of sons and daughters who know their source. Abide in me, and I in you. The branch cannot bear fruit of itself. Abiding is not clinging. It is resting in what already holds you. Service becomes different. You are no longer a fixer walking the earth with a kit of spiritual tools. When a colleague is in fear, when a child is troubled, when a stranger aches, do not reach for the lever. Retire within. Even with eyes open, even mid-phrase, consent to oneness. I can of my own self do nothing. The Father within me doeth the works. Let that be the atmosphere. Sit in it for 3 silent breaths, and then speak if speech is given, or listen if listening is given, or do neither, and let presence do the touching that hands and words could never manage. Let your light so shine does not mean turn up your wattage. It means get out of the way of the light that already is. Where 2 or 3 are gathered in my name, in my nature of oneness, there am I in the midst. The midst is the meeting of realized consciousness, not an exchange of spiritual techniques. Discouragement will knock. When visible changes tarry, the old employer will whisper, try harder, say it louder, add a new step. No, stop. Do not intensify technique. Intensify surrender. Return to receptivity. My grace is sufficient for thee. Sufficient first, sufficient without proofs. A seed does not strain to split the soil. The pressure that bursts it is intrinsic life. So with grace, you cannot coerce it because it is not outside you to be fetched. It is the is of God, always here. Recognize when the doer rests. If nothing seems to happen, let nothing be your teacher. Remain, consent, trust the unseen work. The kingdom of God cometh not with observation. The kingdom of God is within you. In the evening, dismiss the day into the same hands that carried it. Into thy hands I commit my spirit. Not to archive your worries with God overnight, but to let the doer lay down its tools and sleep. God is. God is one. Through the night, the life of God is the life of you. You do not manage your heart to beat, your lungs to breathe, your mind to mend. The Father within doeth the works. And so greater works cease to be a project and become a naturalness. Not your might, not your power, his spirit. Harmony appears because oneness is recognized as normal consciousness, not visited on holy days. Service without self arises because you are not a separate servant delivering God to a distant need. You are transparency within one presence, revealing itself. As long as God is, I am. Say it without pride, without fear, fact, not boast. As long as God is, I am. Where the Spirit of the Lord is, there is liberty. Liberty from pushing, liberty from dread, liberty from the small author who always needed applause or apologies. The kingdom is within you, live from there, quietly, repeatedly, and watch how life bears fruit of its own life. God is. God is one. That is all.